everyone, I'm Peak. Welcome to our channel. In the previous chapter, our main characters went their separate ways, and Jason faced many challenges and decisions. What adventures await Jason in Chapter 3? Let's dive into Chapter 3. The Doll Maker's First Trial.
Otome game rebellion. The world is too real. Chapter 4, The World's Cracks. Under the guidance of Alan Green, Jason spent several fulfilling weeks. The days in Mapletown were peaceful and pleasant, with the air always filled with the scent of wood and paint. Every morning, Jason practiced controlling his puppets in the workshop, the sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows, casting a golden glow on the wooden puppets. However, as the agreed-upon date with Justia approached, Jason began to feel increasingly uneasy. Standing by the workshop window, looking at the rolling hills in the distance, his thoughts wandered. This world felt so real, yet everywhere there was a sense of discord. He couldn't help but recall his former self in the original world, Jasin, who was obsessed with Otome games. Now, he had become a character in one of those games, a twist of fate that made him smile bitterly. Mr. Allen, Jason finally gathered the courage to speak to his mentor one evening. "I need to tell you something. Before coming to Mapletown, I made an appointment with a friend to meet in the central square of the capital. The date is 3 days from now." Alan put down his tools and turned around. The candlelight danced on his face, adding a touch of mystery to his wrinkled features. He nodded thoughtfully. "I understand. It seems it's time for you to leave this town and start your true adventure." "But our training isn't finished," Jason said anxiously, unconsciously stroking a small wooden puppet on the table. Alan smiled and patted Jason's shoulder. "Don't worry, you've mastered the basics. The rest you will learn through practice. However, before you leave, I want to teach you one last technique." Over the next 2 days, Alan taught Jason how to make a special miniature puppet. This puppet was small enough to be hidden in clothing, yet could be used as a communication tool in emergencies. Jason concentrated on learning, feeling both anticipation and apprehension about the upcoming adventure. Finally, the day for Jason's departure arrived. The morning mist had not yet lifted, and Mapletown was shrouded in a hazy veil. Alan stood at the workshop door, handing Jason a letter. "If you encounter trouble in the capital, find an alchemist named Dante. Give him this letter, and he will help you." Jason accepted the letter, looking gratefully at Alan. This old man had not only taught him valuable skills in a few short weeks, but also provided him with a warm refuge. "Thank you, Mr. Allen. I will never forget your teachings." Alan smiled, a fleeting emotion crossing his eyes that Jason couldn't understand. "Go on, young man. Remember, whatever happens, trust your instincts." With gratitude and a hint of reluctance, Jason set off for the capital. Along the way, he kept thinking about the upcoming reunion. What would Justia be like? Did she, like him, feel puzzled by this world? 3 days later, Jason arrived at the central square of the capital as promised. It was more bustling and lively than he had imagined, with the air filled with the scents of various spices and foods, and street performers' songs rising and falling. In the crowded streets, he immediately recognized the figure anxiously looking around in a corner, Justia. Her attire had become more plain, almost blending into the crowd, but her alert eyes gave her away. "Miss Justia!" Jason called softly. Justia turned around and visibly relaxed when she saw Jason. She quickly walked to his side and whispered, "We need to find a safe place to talk." They went to a quiet tea house, and after ensuring no one was paying attention, Justia finally spoke. Her voice carried a hint of fatigue, but her eyes shone with determination. "Mr. Jason, since our last meeting, things have become more complicated." She took a deep breath. "My memories are becoming clearer, but also more confusing." Jason frowned. "You mean your memories of your past life?" Justia nodded. "Yes, but not just that. Ever since meeting you, those memories have flashed back more frequently. I see more scenes of our original world. And I've started noticing strange things." "What kind of strange things?" Jason asked, his heartbeat quickening. Justia looked around to ensure no one was listening, then lowered her voice. "Do you remember when I was being hunted? Recently, it's gotten worse. It's not just bounty hunters, I suspect some big players are involved. Big players? Jasin felt a surge of unease, his hand instinctively touching the miniature puppet in his pocket. Yes, Justia nodded, worry flashing in her eyes. I overheard some nobles talking about me. They seem to think I threatened something. But I don't understand why. Jasin pondered, recalling the plot of the game. But the differences between reality and the game were too great for him to be sure of this information's reliability. Have you done anything that might have offended them? Justia shook her head. I've been avoiding capture, trying not to draw attention. But she hesitated, a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. Sometimes I feel like the whole world is against me. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? No, Jasin said softly, gently holding Justia's hand. Considering our situation, it's not crazy. He remembered Alan's warning, Miss Justia, I know someone who might be able to help us. Will you come with me to find him? Justia nodded firmly, hope rekindling in her eyes. We can only trust each other now. Jasin fell silent for a moment, as if contemplating something. Then, he cautiously spoke, Miss Justia, since we only have each other to trust now, I'd like to know more about you. Can you tell me more about your special skills? Justia's expression grew serious, and she asked softly, do you really want to know? It's not a pleasant story. Jasin nodded firmly, if you're willing to share. I think it might be important for us to understand our current situation. Justia took a deep breath and began, the thief who taught me the skills, his name was Maurice. He not only taught me how to use poisons and concealed weapons but also how to make them. A hint of pain flashed in her eyes, and her voice trembled slightly. Every poison, every weapon, I experienced firsthand. Jasin gasped, feeling a wave of sorrow for Justia. You mean? Yes, Justia gave a bitter smile, her gaze distant as if recalling those dark days. Maurice believed that only by personally experiencing the pain of the poison could I truly master them. I teetered on the brink of death countless times. That's terrifying, Jasin whispered, his heart filled with sympathy and admiration for Justia. Justia continued, but the most confusing part is, I discovered I had an unusual talent for these skills. Whether making poisons or using concealed weapons, I learned incredibly fast. Jasin was shocked, silently pondering, this is so strange. In the game, Justia was supposed to be a saint, skilled in healing and light magic. Why does she have such opposite talents in this world? Justia didn't seem to notice Jasin's distraction and continued, sometimes I wonder if this is my fate. Maybe I was born to master these dark skills. Her voice carried a hint of self-mockery, but also deep confusion. Jasin snapped out of his thoughts and carefully asked, have you used these skills? Justia's eyes turned cold, as if she had become a different person in an instant. I don't want to answer that question, Mr. Jasin. Some things, the less you know, the better. Jasin nodded understandingly, I understand. Thank you for telling me. Justia's expression softened slightly, I thought you should know the truth. After all, we're in this together now. She paused, a hint of worry in her eyes, but I must warn you, Mr. Jasin. My skills. They might bring us more trouble. Those chasing me might not just be afraid of my abilities. You mean? Jasin thought deeply. I suspect, Justia lowered her voice, fear flashing in her eyes, they might want to use my abilities. In this world, people like me are often seen as weapons, not humans. Jasin fell into deep thought. Justia's abilities are completely opposite to those in the game, but they are so powerful. What happened to this world? Why is there such a significant change? They left the tea house cautiously, navigating the complex streets. Jasin noticed that as they approached the city center, the atmosphere seemed to grow tenser. People walked quickly, and the number of guards had clearly increased. It feels like everyone is watching us, Justia whispered, her hand unconsciously touching the concealed weapon hidden in her sleeve. Jasin tightened his grip on the letter in his pocket. We need to find Dante quickly. Maybe he can explain all of this. Just then, Jasin felt the miniature puppet in his pocket, one taught to him by Alan, suddenly vibrate. He took it out and saw it pointing in a direction. This way, Jasin said, leading them into a narrow alley. As they went deeper into the alley, the surroundings grew quieter. The sunlight was blocked by tall buildings, with only sporadic rays filtering through the gaps. Suddenly, Jason noticed strange symbols on the walls, resembling some ancient script. Mr. Jason, Justia suddenly stopped, her eyes alert. Do you feel like something is watching us? Jason looked around. The street was empty, but the air was filled with an invisible sense of pressure. He was about to respond when a low voice came from behind them. You too, stop. They turned around and saw a tall figure in a black robe. The person's face was hidden by a hood, making it hard to see their expression. Jason instinctively stepped in front of Justia, ready to use his puppet abilities at any moment. Who are you? Jason asked warily, his voice trembling slightly but his eyes resolute. His hand gripped the miniature puppet in his pocket, ready to unleash his ability at any moment. When the tall figure removed the hood, Jason saw a chiseled face, deep amber eyes, and slightly curly dark brown medium-length hair. My name is Dante, the person said, their voice low and magnetic. Jason gasped, his heart racing. He had thought that Alan's mention of Dante might just be a coincidence, but standing before him was undeniably the alchemist Dante, who had captured the hearts of many girls in the Otome game. At this moment, he had to accept the fact the characters from the game truly existed in this world. Jason struggled to stay calm, controlling his expression to hide his surprise. He recalled Jasmine's affection for Dante when playing the game, the clever, calm, and charming alchemist. Now, this character stood before him, alive. Justia, on the other hand, frowned slightly, warily observing Dante. Her eyes showed no signs of being attracted to Dante's appearance. Instead, they were filled with suspicion and vigilance. Dante's gaze shifted between them. He noticed Jason's surprise and Justia's caution, thinking to himself, these two young people seem unusual, especially the girl. Her eyes show a maturity beyond her years. You? Really a Dante? Jason couldn't help but ask, his voice trembling slightly. Dante raised an eyebrow. You've heard of me? His gaze shifted between Jason and Justia, seemingly assessing their threat level. Jason quickly glanced at Justia, thinking, if this follows the game's plot, she should be attracted to Dante. However, the current Justia seemed unaffected by him. Instead, she noticed Jason's odd reaction, giving him a puzzled look but saying nothing. Jason hurriedly shook his head. It's just. Mr. Allen mentioned you. He took out the letter from his pocket. He asked me to give this to you. Dante took the letter, quickly scanned it, and his expression became serious. Come on, he said, it's not safe here. We need to leave. As they prepared to follow Dante, footsteps suddenly echoed from the end of the street. Justia quickly turned, a small dagger appearing in her hand from nowhere. Looks like we need to find another way out, Dante said calmly. Do you trust me? Jason and Justia exchanged a glance, then nodded. Dante pulled out a small bottle from his pocket. This is a new smoke bomb I developed. It creates dense fog and disrupts tracking magic. We'll escape under its cover. With that, he smashed the bottle on the ground. Instantly, thick purple smoke spread rapidly, soon enveloping the entire street. Stay close to me, Dante whispered, and don't make a sound. Under the cover of the smoke, they quickly moved through several alleys, eventually arriving at an ordinary-looking house. Dante skillfully opened the door and led them inside. The interior was simple, but filled with strange jars and various tools. The air was scented with a peculiar herbal fragrance. This is my workshop, Dante explained. We should be safe for now. Jason curiously looked around, feeling a surge of curiosity. Mr. Dante, do you know Mr. Allen? Dante nodded. Yes, we used to work together. Alan is an excellent alchemist and a kind person. His voice carried a hint of nostalgia. However, we haven't been in touch for many years. So, do you know why Mr. Allen asked us to find you? Dante was silent for a moment, then said, Alan mentioned in his letter that you might be in some trouble. He hopes I can help you. His gaze shifted between Jason and Justia again. It seems the situation is more complicated than I thought. Can you tell me what happened? Jason and Justia exchanged a look, unsure of how to begin. Just then, a commotion came from outside. "Damn," Dante cursed softly, "it seems they're faster than I expected." He quickly walked to a bookshelf and pressed a hidden switch. The shelf slowly moved aside, revealing a hidden room. "Get in," Dante said, "there are emergency supplies inside. I'll divert them and come back when it's safe." Jasin and Justia quickly entered the hidden room, and the bookshelf closed behind them. In the darkness, Jasin felt a wave of dizziness. Everything had happened so fast, so unreal. He remembered Alan's words, "Remember, whatever happens, trust your instincts." At this moment, his instincts told him that the real adventure was just beginning. Whatever awaited them ahead, he had to face it bravely. In this dangerous world, only by uncovering the truth could they truly survive.
Thank you all for watching Chapter 3, The Doll Maker's First Trial. As Jasin's adventure unfolds, he will encounter even more challenges and surprises. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to receive updates on the latest chapters. Your support is our greatest motivation. See you next time.